Some common sense steps can prevent heat stroke and heat-related illness. Still, the CDC reporting hundreds of deaths. They account actually for more than tornadoes, flood, hurricanes, lightning combined. Dr. Kevin Ziegler with St. Elizabeth is giving us a refresher to keep you cool this summer. So you and I were talking, and you say if someone comes into the ER and says, I think I have heat stroke, they probably don't.
Probably don't have heat stroke. If you're saying, I've got heat stroke, no, you probably have heat exhaustion. Heat-related conditions, there's a spectrum of them. The very mild ones, sunburn. You can also get the sun rash, the prickly heat that people talk about. We can also see edema. Then the middle ones, those are the ones we see a lot of. That's heat exhaustion, heat syncope, or passing out because you're so hot, and dehydration. Those three are the ones we see in the emergency room quite a bit.
Okay, so heat stroke is much more severe and more rare.
Correct. Heat stroke is more severe, more rare, and more deadly.
Let's talk about looking at the symptoms. You want to look at the symptoms that are early on. You say that's how you can prevent some serious things later.
Correct. So early symptoms, you kind of feel sick to your stomach. You feel more tired than you would expect for the activity you're doing. Heat stroke, I mean, it's essentially two different conditions. There's non-exertional heat stroke, which is what we see in the elderly and the infants. So they're not doing stuff that would make them more susceptible to the heat. But as opposed to exertional heat stroke, that's the one where you see in the fall the football player in pads presenting to the emergency room acting goofy. That is heat stroke, and that's what we see a lot of too.
Okay, and you say it kind of depends on the time of year, because when you have that first wave, you really see a huge influx.
Correct. So it's usually like at the beginning of the year is when we see the most of them, because people aren't prepared. Maybe they haven't turned on their air conditioning units, and that's when we see a lot of them. But throughout the year, with the fluctuations in heat, you have a cool down, and then all of a sudden a rapid increase in heat, you know, that'll cause them to come in.
Well, because I feel like we've been seeing quite a bit already this year of warm days.
Oh, a ton,
you
yeah,
say humidity takes a big part in it too.
Correct. So like a day today when the humidity is 97%. When the humidity is greater than 75%, your body, one of its main cooling mechanisms is evaporation or sweating. If the humidity is greater than 75%, you completely lose that.
Well, so you recognize some of the symptoms, and let's talk about ways to prevent it. You mentioned hydration. Hydration,
okay, and working in well-ventilated areas. So stagnant air will cause you to heat up faster, so to speak. There's a lot of other things that can contribute. Tight-fitting clothing, the weather outside, all of those contribute to how fast you heat up.
Now, I've heard before, too, that once you are thirsty, your body's already in sort of a dehydration mode. So you really should stay hydrated even if you aren't desperately needing water?
Correct. Beforehand, that's the time to hydrate. And it's not always just plain water, too. It's electrolyte-containing fluids. Okay. I mean, when you sweat, it's salt water you're sweating. So getting that salt and water back into your system, putting it in even before you're going to be dehydrated is a good idea.
Well, and I'd like you to stress, too, especially as we enter these, hot days of July and August, taking it seriously. If someone really does tell you, I feel really funny.
Oh, heat stroke is no joke. If you get heat stroke, mortality is huge. It's almost 80%. So when you recognize, and it's mostly a witness to recognize somebody with heat stroke because they're not acting right. First thing to do is rapidly cool them. Get ice packs. And the places to put ice packs are in the neck, the armpits, and the groin. That's because you hit major blood vessels and you bring that cooling to the central circulation.
Doctor, thanks so much. That's all the time we have for today. Good advice as we head into the hot summer months. We'll see you next time, and we'll be back with more Fox and T Now in a moment.